Howdy y'all! Welcome back to the lab. Today we're gonna be making some yee-haw-some dice. Why did I write that? Actually though, today we're gonna be making some cartoony Wild West inspired dice. This is technically the next video in our Empires SMP inspired dice. This time I'm making a set based on Jimmy Solidarity Gaming's Empire Tumble Town, which is very much a rootin' tootin' cowboy kind of town. Even if that's not your thing, stick around because I'm gonna go through my process and why I did things certain ways, and we'll get some dice made. Let's go!
So I wanted to make a blue sky with clouds on it, and to do that I wanted to paint the clouds. So I decided to go for some blue blanks, which are slightly smaller versions of the dice that we can then put into the actual dice molds later. It took me a while to get the blue color that I wanted. I just started too light at first and it wasn't quite opaque enough, so I just kept adding ink until I got it where I wanted it. So we're gonna start out by making those blue blanks. I didn't fill up the blank molds all the way. I figured I didn't need to because I was gonna be covering that half with something opaque anyways. Part of the reason I did that is because these are the blank molds that are still a little bit too big. I've since made my blanks a little bit smaller, but since they're a little bit too big, they tend to push on the outside of the actual dice molds a little bit and cause some deformation. So if I can avoid some of that by not even doing a whole blank inside the die, I'm gonna go for it. Go ahead and unmold those. And sand them down a little bit just to get rid of any of those sharp edges. I did also sand down the sides a little bit to try and make them a little bit smaller, but they were still a little bit too big, to be honest. Alright, we can move on to painting. I was going for a very cartoony look with the clouds, so I wanted everything to have very round shapes. So instead of using a paintbrush where I'm going to end up with lines more than anything, I decided to go with some dotting tools that I have. I usually use these dotting tools for polymer clay work, but they worked well for this. These are based on the wallpaper from Toy Story, which might seem a little bit odd, but it's because Jimmy actually had something in his empire that was based on the wallpaper from Toy Story. He didn't even build it himself, but it was a running joke in season 2 that he was Sheriff Woody. So one of his friends came by and built a giant Toy Story room around his whole base. It did get taken down eventually, but I started these dice before it got taken down, and also just seemed like such an iconic visual from the series. I went for kind of that classic shape that's on the wallpaper, along with some little tinier pieces and some fluffier clouds to kind of make it look like you're looking at it from different angles, and add a little bit more variety in there. I put a little bit of resin into the molds before the blanks to help prevent air bubbles from getting trapped underneath them, and then I went and popped those in there. I was trying to get it so that the clear resin would go around the blue blanks and really show them off, but I didn't want the clear resin to be higher than the blue blanks in there. I wanted all the clouds to be showing, but I didn't want the edges of the blue blanks to be showing. It was definitely a little bit of a balancing act. I went ahead and popped those into the pressure pot and let those cure, and then we went and moved on to adding the other half of the dice. So his empire's in the mesa, so I tried to find some good mesa colors. I started with like a coppery color. I thought that was the most mesa terracotta color. Let that layer cure, and then I went to a gold, which I thought contrasted with that nicely. I tried to keep in mind the dice that didn't have as much space in them for all of the layers. I thought about which colors I was gonna leave out. I did try to prioritize like the terracotta color and maybe the brown a little bit more because I figured that the terracotta color was the most important and then I wanted something that was going to contrast with that. But I didn't want the gold on the bottom of the die because that felt the least terracotta to me. Alright, we can go ahead and unmold those. I was so happy with how these were straight out of the mold. This was one of those sets of dice where I wasn't sure if the way I was visualizing it was going to turn out, and they turned out like exactly how I was picturing in my head. I was so excited. You've even got like a little bit of a mountainscape from where the resin kind of went up and down a little bit with the layers, but it worked out so well. I was so happy. I spent a while trying to figure out what color to do the numbers on this. If I remember correctly, I actually did the inking for the set of dice during a live stream, and I think I went back and forth a number of times on what color I wanted to do. Finally set it on a yellow because I thought that felt a little bit cartoony and very like sunshiny. I will say if I did these again, I probably would put down a base layer of white or blue or something first, because I found that if you look at the sides of the die with the blanks in there, you can see the yellow and it kind of makes everything feel a little bit green. And here's them all finished. I'm honestly pretty happy with how they turned out. This was one of those ones where I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get the idea out of my head and into a set of dice, and I'm so happy with how they turned out in comparison to just my mental image of them. Thanks for sticking around, I do appreciate it. Also, I just got monetized on YouTube, woo! So thank you to everyone who subscribed or who's watching my videos, or even if this is like 5 years later and you're watching this video, thanks. I do want to go ahead and thank my wonderful patrons for supporting this sort of stuff. Keep an eye out, I should have more videos out soon, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!